All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's start as always with the Edmonton Oilers. Oh, God, what a season this has been. This has been, maybe the this has been the definition of an up and down season. And right now, the Edmonton Oilers very much appear to be on the very much are on the up end of that, and it's so much more fun right now than it is when you're down. I mean, I think at this point, none of us are going to pretend we don't understand that. But this week, the Edmonton Oilers gave us one of the best feel-good stories of this season. And that came not in the form of anything that happened on the ice, but in the form of 5-year-old Ben Stelter. He was the player that carried the flag for the Oilers on the ice, skated out with the flag before they played the San Jose Sharks. Ben Stelter has stage 4 brain cancer. So as much as we would all hope otherwise, I mean, probably the odds are not great, but I know that we are all, hoping and praying for this kid, to beat that cancer. So before that game even started, there were people in the media that were basically out on Oilers Twitter asking anybody who was going to the game to give this kid the biggest, loudest ovation that they could give him. And, the fans really came through. And Connor McDavid, right before they did the puck drop, he went over to Ben and he said, these cheers are for you. And so, the Oilers really made that kid's dream come true. I know that he would make our dreams come true if he beats this cancer. And, I have a history of children with cancer. My family has a history of that, so we know how that feels. And there was probably not a thing that this family needed more than this. But unfortunately, that as much as I wish that was the end of this story, because I would make it a short one, it really wasn't. So the player the goaltender that started that game on Thursday was Mike Smith. And after the game, the media asked him during the press scrum. They asked if he had any advice that he could give. He could give Ben's family. And did he say the right thing? No, definitely not. He said basically, these fans will turn on you, kid, in a heartbeat like that. And was that the right thing to say? At a time like this, on this subject? No, definitely not. But then I think there's a question that we as Oilers fans that we need to ask ourselves this season of all seasons. And of course that question is, is it true? And that is not even nearly as hard a no as I think that we would all prefer. And as a matter of fact, I think that deep down, I think we know that. I think that we all know that there is an element of this fandom that is getting to be pretty toxic. Actually, I think they've probably been pretty toxic for quite a while now. But I think that right now, if we were to look at the state of the Oilers fandom, and in particular the way that they treat the players of this team, I don't know if there would be a shortage of good things to say, but there definitely would not be a shortage of bad things, and we have to recognize that. Earlier this season, we hit a real low point. And what did you have at these games? You had people throwing their jerseys on the ice. Just what an incredibly boneheaded, stupid, and quite frankly, selfish thing to do. I mean, for one thing, if you're so upset that the team didn't win the game that you came to, keep in mind that when you walked through the door, if you didn't know that that was a risk you were taking, when you bought that ticket, I don't know what to say to you. I don't know what to tell you. But if you decide that you're so mad at the team that you don't even want that jersey anymore, don't throw it on the ice. Go give it to Santa's Anonymous. There are all kinds of underprivileged children, in and around the city of Edmonton, in Alberta, Oilers fans whose families wouldn't be able to afford to get them a jersey. Why don't you make their day instead of insulting, the team and the franchise and the history, and showing everybody that really that thing doesn't mean anything to you. There's one person out there that definitely never would have put up with that, and that, Mark Messier, Moose. There's actually a story from, I think this happened sometime in the early 90s, so before Messier got traded away from the team. But they came back to the dressing room after a game, and one of the Russian players threw his jersey on the floor. And Messier went and grabbed him and pinned him to the wall, and he said, no, this crest does not touch the floor. Because this means something. And it's supposed to mean a little bit more than some urban yuppie, going to a game, and posting all the photos on his photos on his Instagram as some kind of a status symbol. No, it's supposed to mean a lot more than that to the fans of this team. But I'm starting to wonder if we don't have a lot of people that are fans of this team, for whom that really isn't true. And like I said before, you can actually look not much further than the way that they treat some of the players. We've got 2 goaltenders on the roster right now, with a third in the minors. And really, I don't think any one of those guys has been treated especially well this season. I think that they have all basically taken turns, either being dismissed as a player for the future, or basically being fingered as everything that people think is wrong with this team and scapegoated, when really there's, of all the weaknesses that this team has, goaltending is probably one of them, but it's not the only one. But the way that Mikko Koskinen and Mike Smith in particular have been treated this season, it's like the fans don't even appreciate them. It's like, it's very much become a what have you done for me lately fandom. And so last year, when Mike Smith was having a fantastic season, a lot of these people, they at least acted like they loved him. And now this season that he's had a couple of setbacks related to injury, oh no, suddenly a lot of these fans, we don't like Mike Smith anymore. We need to trade him away. We need to end his career. We need to get him out of the NHL. I'll tell you this much. If I was a player that was looking at free agency at the end of this season, which Mike Smith is not, but if I was a player that the Edmonton Oilers organization might come to try to sign to bring here, geez, I don't know. I think I might be a little bit more reluctant to put my name on the dotted line. And if you don't believe me, just ask Patrice Bergeron. One of the top stars in this league with the Boston Bruins, actually came out and said after that jersey tossing incident, he said, I wouldn't go play for a team where the fans do that. I mean, this sport, it's not about the name on the back of the jersey, it's about the name on the front. And if the name on the front doesn't mean anything, then why would I want to wear it? That's a fair question. But I mean, in the case of Mike Smith, Mikko Koskinen, a few other players, Zach Kassian has been under a lot of fire this season, people saying that we need to get rid of him. Josh Archibald, for different reasons, but the same thing there, people saying, oh, just get rid of him. They displease us for whatever reason, so they're disposable, just get rid of them. I mean, all of that is one thing, because there is something of an argument there that perhaps there might be a better fit out there at that position, and I don't deny that. And if that's the argument that a person's trying to make, and you're not going to badmouth the player and just dump on them and tell the world that you think that they're a bum, that they're a shitty player, well then fair enough, we can have that conversation. But the way that some of the alumni have been treated this year by some of the fans was absolutely astonishing. When they retired Kevin Lowe's number 4 earlier this season because he was put into the Hockey Hall of Fame, I was blown away when I actually encountered people who call themselves Oilers fans that actually came out and dumped on the Hockey Hall of Fame for even letting Kevin Lowe in. You know, one of the best defensive defensemen of all time. You know, he doesn't have those spectacular offensive numbers that, say, a Scott Niedermayer or a Bobby Orr has or a Paul Coffey has. But as it pertains to defensive defensemen, yeah, absolutely one of the best ever. 6 Stanley Cups. His name is on the Stanley Cup at present 6 times, with hopefully more to come. But 6 Stanley Cups. One of the best players at this position in history. 6 championships. And people that are fans of the franchise, for which he won 5 of those championships, actually want to dump on him getting into the Hall of Fame? If you're dumping on the Hall of Fame for letting Kevin Lowe in, you're a shit fan, and you should be fucking embarrassed. I mean, Jesus. A guy that worked his whole life, gave this team, gave its fans, his blood, sweat, and tears for that long, and not just as a player, but also as a builder. You know, the guy who is in no small measure responsible for this team even still being here at all. You know, the guy who has a big share of the credit, you know, for this team not being in Hamilton, or not being in Houston, or not being in Oklahoma, because a lot of these fans, they're young enough that they don't remember that was a thing that almost happened. So if you don't appreciate him for the way that he played for this team, you know, in the championships that he brought to this team, you could at least appreciate the role that he played in this team continuing to exist at all. But no, we know, no, not us. We know better. You know, we know better than the Hall of Fame. You know, we know better than Kevin Lowe. You know, here's the thing, is that this isn't anything that I really want. You know, I don't want to be the podcast that dumps on the fans. No, this isn't what I want for this fandom at all. And then there is a corner where this takes a bit of a more personal turn, because it is actually getting pretty close to about a year, you know, since I had a tremendous blow up with the administrator of one of these Edmonton Oilers Facebook groups, who actually thought that there was something wrong with sticking up for Emily Cave. And I was actually targeted pretty horribly for quite a period of time after that by a lot of these people that got upset when I kind of decided to myself, it's like, well, you know, if you're not happy with somebody posting the content that they create on your Facebook group and sharing it there, well, then maybe you don't need to be pirating Edmonton Oilers games on your Facebook group and basically stealing from the team, you know, stealing from the franchise, stealing from the players, stealing from the fans. That is very much stealing from the paying fans. And there was actually a period of time where, you know, I was fending off death threats. Not from really scary people, but yeah, that was a thing that happened. And if honestly the biggest contribution that you're going to make to this fandom as a fan of this team is stealing from the team, yeah, you know what, you're not just a shit fan, you're not just a shit person, but you know, you're a thief and a crook. And I'm not actually I don't have the slightest bit of regret in the role that I played in putting a stop to that. Not that people have stopped all this illegal streaming altogether, because yeah, it's definitely still out there, but you know, it's pretty safe to say that that these guys have at least had to take their thievery a little bit deeper underground. And yeah, I'm not the slightest bit embarrassed of the role that I played in making them do that. But when you look at all of this stuff, it's impossible to ignore it at this point that there are some pretty sick corners of this fandom. And I don't think that any one of these things represents the fandom as a whole. But I think that there is definitely a cancer in the fandom. And if we allow it to, it's going to poison it for everybody else. Now, this isn't really what I want to be talking about. I don't want to be that podcast that's out there, talking dirt about the other fans. That's not any fucking fun. But sometimes it's not any fucking fun to be a part of this team and trying to interact, with other fans of this team, because of stuff like this. And now the players, the players of other teams, but now also the players on this team are finally starting to come out and actually call out, these toxic corners of the fandom. Was Ben Stelter's illness, a question related to Ben Stelter's illness? Was that the appropriate place for Mike Smith to air his grievances? Fuck no, absolutely not. I think that he should walk that back, and he should apologize to that family. And I think that he probably, he's a good enough man that I think he probably feels a little bit embarrassed at something that he said that was, spoken rashly in the heat of the moment, in the midst of a lot of frustration, that isn't even unjustified. But was he right to say it then? Yeah, definitely not. And unless those of us that are bringing this toxicity to this fandom, unless we're willing to kind of put our egos aside and cut that shit out, or if the people that are watching this happen, can find it in themselves to call it out a little bit more often, I am not overly optimistic about the relationship that fans of this team might have with the players going forward. I don't think that the fans of this franchise are going to enjoy the kind of relationship that fans of CFL teams enjoy with their players. Where you could be sitting in public and one of them might approach you and talk to you. Because you have to put yourself in their shoes. God, why would they ever do that? Not because they're, Mr. High, Mighty, Rich NHL player, but you approach a fan in public. I kind of feel like if you're a player on the Oilers, if you approach a fan in public, you don't really know what you're going to get. Yeah, they might shake your hand and tell you how happy they are to meet you, but I think that there are some fans of this franchise right now that, are every bit as likely to slap them in the face. They do it enough on their Twitter. And really, as much as we see here a player that said something at a time when it was unwise to say it, I think that we are seeing that fracturing of that relationship. And I don't like it. This isn't what I want for this fandom. I definitely like to have a lot better than that. But there's a lot of people that need to learn how to put their egos aside and come to the table a little bit better if that's what we're going to have. And I'm sure that there's a lot of people that, might not be so keen to tune into this podcast again, because I think that the people that are doing these things know full well that they're doing them. They don't like it when people criticize it. That's too bad. But guess what, kids? I'm not in this for clicks. I'm in this for conversations. If I was in this for clicks, I'd be uploading stuff every day to try to beat that algorithm. Not uploading every couple of weeks and then hoping I can get a good chat going on some of these Oilers Facebook groups where they're not a bunch of toxic little dipshits. I guess what I'm saying is that I would rather have a strong fandom than have a strong viewership. And honestly, wouldn't you? Because right now, I think that a lot of us aren't acting like it. And I think that what happened with Mike Smith this week, that should be a wake-up call. Now, is somebody actually going to answer that alarm and not hit snooze? Well, I guess we'll see who does. I know I don't want to just hit the snooze button anymore, and that's why I'm taking this risk. being out here doing this. Because if Oilers fans are getting grumpy during the bumpy parts right now, like just imagine how bad that's going to be if, say, McDavid and Draisaitl decide that they're going to leave this team because they don't like these fans anymore. Best two players in the world. Are we going to pretend that can't happen? Like the best two hockey players in the world can't go write their own ticket someplace where the fans are just a little bit less sour and a little bit less toxic? You know, if that's a prospect that excites you as little as it excites me, then maybe the time for us to be a little bit less sour and a little bit less toxic is right now.